Hello again, and welcome to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management. This is a show that sits down and talks a little bit about what's going on in the world as far as finance is concerned, maybe a little Wall Street talk here and there. But really what we all want to know is, am I going to be okay? Can I retire? Did I do enough? Am I saving enough? And who's going to help me? And that's why we have the show. Jay, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Randy. What's new with you?
What's new with me? I'm liking the summer. I'm liking this, and a lot of vacations, a lot of that kind of stuff. So I've got a few things planned, not too much, but and you, new dad, so you're kind of chained to the
We're not going anywhere.
house.
Not spending any money.
Anywhere.
That's my big thing. Is we're not spending any money. I just got the hospital bills in. I'm not spending any money.
Yowza.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've got Jay at your disposal because when he goes to work, he goes, okay, I'm away from the crying baby. So I'm going to stay for a while. All right. Well, one of the things that we all wonder about is, how much do we need to save for retirement? And Jay and I have talked about this ad nauseum. There's all these numbers out there. People say you need 1.5 and $2 million and $3 million and all these things. And we say, they say this. I have yet to meet Mr. They. I don't know. Have you met Mr. They?
Mr. Late's pretty elusive.
He is. But I'm glad to report, this is the first time I've ever been able to say this, that the number that they say we need for retirement has dropped. Last year, it was $1.46 million. This year, it's $1.26 million. The reason? They say inflation has finally come down and we don't need as much for retirement. So are you feeling better? Are you planning differently, Jay? Is it all different and better now? What do you say?
Well, we talk about this a lot, like you mentioned, right? And we've had figures of what? 5 million, I think was one of them that we had, 3 million. I think this should open your eyes up to how all these numbers are nonsense. Right, okay. Because we went from 1.46 to what, 1.26 is what you said?
Right, yep.
And the reason being cited is, inflation's come down. Inflation, unless we have deflation, which we sure don't, right? Prices don't come back. They just stop increasing at a slower rate. So it doesn't really make much sense that that's the reason for it. Are they using different calculations for retirement expenses in general? Maybe. But let me tell you a real life example as to why these numbers are really meaningless. Okay. This last week in the office, we had two different couples come in. One had almost 4 million that they had saved between 401ks and other investments that they have. So you would think a good job and they'll have a comfortable retirement. We had another couple that they had saved 800,000. And the news I was able to deliver to the person or the couple that had an $800,000 nest egg was, you guys are going to be just fine. The message I had to deliver to the couple that had almost 4 million was, you either need to keep working or this plan isn't going to work.
Wow.
Because of the expectations that they have, right? And it's not that one is wrong and one is right. It's just, I want to live my retirement a certain way. That's fine. It's going to cost a lot of money. That's just the thing. And we have the other couple, I guess we could say the wealthier couple, right? The one that have 4 million. They have a lot of big, expensive things planned for retirement. Around the world cruises. They've been to every continent thus far except Antarctica. And from my understanding, that's a pretty expensive trip. Right. He's a hunter. So he's got some safaris lined up. We're talking big ticket items, right? And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I would like to do a lot of those things as well, just it's going to cost money. The other couple, fairly moderate expectations. Hey, look, we're not big travelers. If we travel, it's going to be domestic. We don't have any debt. This is comfortable for us. And that's the reason. So, when you get into the nitty gritty of what someone wants to do in retirement, then you can find out what is the number that they need. Having a random number like this that seems to change for no real reason whatsoever should be the red flag.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories like this that come out every year, and we deal with them here on the show. But at the same time, we also find, I think there was a number that said only about 3 to 4% of people have saved $1 million for retirement, which means, there's a lot of people who haven't saved $1 million who are doing just fine on retirement. So I don't want any of these things to discourage you from coming in. For you to say, oh, we can't go in there and talk to Jay until we have $1 million or $1.2 million or $1.5 million. Not the case at all.
That's right.
Give us a call. Let's sit down and talk about your retirement, how it's going to work. It's all about how much you spend, and you may be surprised at the answer that comes back. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website. It's retire210.com. That's our website. Down at the bottom of the page, there's a place for you to put a little information in there, and Jay and the team will reach out to you, or you can just call us at 210-985-6200. Let's do the math on your retirement and see what comes out. 210-985-6200. All right, so Jay, do you ever go to Target? Do you ever go to that store?
I try to avoid all the stores, grocery stores, Target, Costco, all of them.
There's a reason for that. Target is one of those stores where you go in and you think you're going to get 3 or 4 things. And then when you get to the checkout, you got 20. And instead of $50 or $100, it's $250. And you go, what happened here? And they are calling it the Target effect. Apparently, Target has a strategic layout in their store that makes you spend more. I don't know. It works on me, I guess. So they've got a system. And most of us fall for that system. But where I want to get at, Uncle Sam has a system too, because we talk about retirement here. Uncle Sam has a system when it comes to taxes. He wants you in his system so you'll spend more on taxes. So let's talk about that a little bit. Do you find that people are spending more than they thought on taxes in retirement, and how do we approach that?
Yeah, it's so I would say who's worse than Target is Costco. Right?
Okay, all right.
That's why they put that $4 or $5 chicken in the back. So you got to go through the whole store, and then it's $500, right?
They got a system.
That's right. Yeah. So the biggest eye opener for people with this is people who do not plan out for their required distributions, their RMDs, and then they get to age 72, 73, or kind of, it's a graduating scale at the moment for when you have to take your RMDs. And all of a sudden they're hit with a $60,000 RMD, $80,000 RMD, and it's bumping them up into the next tax bracket, and it's completely unexpected. And when you take a look at a lot of people's tax situation, the savings really hasn't been realized because, well, I got to take this out of my income when I was working. Yeah, but most people are not in that much of a lower tax bracket once they retire. And then if you start adding $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in distributions on top of that, well, guess what? You might even be going backwards.
And so finding out this, many of us think, well, I have less income in retirement, I'll pay fewer taxes. Not the case, is it?
Not always the case.
It just doesn't work that way.
Not always the case. Yeah. The tax planning element is something that it seems like every year we're doing more and more of that for our clients. So, years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we started partnerships with CPAs so that we can work with them for our clients to get ahead of this problem. So, what we look at is once someone turns 60 or 62 or they're retiring, whatever it might be, we say, all right, we've got 12, 15-year runway here before we're going to be required to take distributions. Let's start using that time to our advantage so we don't end up in the situation we just described.
Yeah, a person who turns 65 this year will be a person who has to take their RMDs at 75.
That's right.
So that gives you a 10-year runway to do that.
Right.
Now, do you find that people even going past 75 when they have to take money out, are they still doing those conversions? Does that make any sense at all? Or should it be done before RMDs?
Get ahead of it as soon as you can. So, at the moment, can you be 75 or so? Well, I think it's actually 73 now.
Right now it is 73.
73. Yeah, I mean, converting into the Roth, if you've got to take the distribution, you may as well, but it's kind of too late then. You don't have control over the rate of distributions. You've got a required amount. And you can take more if you like, which just compounds the tax problem, right? But you've got a minimum that you've got to take. The biggest thing, and this is true with investing and planning in general, right? The biggest thing is time. And once you lose that time, you lose that opportunity, you've lost a lot of options.
Mm-hmm. And this is the conversation that you can sit and have, because I know many of us who are going into retirement now, we were introduced to a 401k when we were probably in our 20s, and that's where we've been saving our money. And it's been a good thing in many ways because you get matching and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, boy, we've been deferring taxes for 20 or 30 years, and that bill is coming due, and it's going to come due in our retirement. And it's something that we need to plan for and sit down and deal with. And the earlier you come in, the more time it gives you to do these conversions that we talk about here on the show. Give us a call. Give us a look at our website. Let's talk through it. 210-985-6200. 210-985-6200. Let's talk through what your concerns are and how we can do the math on your retirement. You can also use our website, which is retire210.com. Retire210.com. Down at the bottom of the page, you can put some information in there. You'll also see our retirement 5-step process, talking about the meeting. What are your goals? What do you want to do in retirement? How are you doing? Where are you saving your money? Let's make some analysis and recommendations on how we might be able to help. Again, 210-985-6200. Well, most of you are probably listening to this show thinking about retirement. You're above the age of 50. And sometime during your 50s, you got a letter in the mail from AARP, and they said, you can become a member now. And it's like, really? And there are
Am I that old? Is that what's happening?
Exactly. It's like, really? I don't want this card. There are 38 million members now of AARP. And the woman who's in charge, the CEO of AARP, was on the CBS Sunday Morning Show, and they've been doing, talking to people and doing surveys and things. And she said, this is what people are most concerned about right now as they approach their retirement.
Our members are most worried about Medicare, Social Security, and family caregiving. We're hearing more and more from people who are in the sandwich generation, taking care of younger children, taking care of their aging parents, and the financial hardships that can bring.
Okay, so there's a lot there. But what's interesting that she said is that what people are most concerned about is Social Security and Medicare. Those are two government programs, okay? And we hear, even now, we're hearing about our government tinkering with these things, Social Security running out of money, not being able to give us the entire amount that we thought we were going to get, Medicare cutbacks and things like that. So these are things that we're relying on, Jay, in our retirement years, and they're constantly being changed. How do you, as a financial advisor, deal with those changes and plan for those changes where we may not even know what they are in the future?
That's right. Yeah. So, what's really scary for some people with this is, Randy, you, me, some of the people listening here, we're blessed that we're actually a bit better off than the average person, right? There's people out there that their retirement is going to be whatever Social Security is. There really isn't a whole lot of planning, right? There's no 401k, there's no pension, there's no IRAs, and it's whatever Social Security gives me. So for those people, particularly concerning. But I want to address this and try and allay some of the fears, because in almost every meeting we have, she's absolutely right. What are the biggest concerns? Medicare, Social Security. Is something going to happen to them? I agree with her 100%, because that's what we hear in the office as well. Hey, can I count on Social Security? Can I count on the Medicare being there? And we can talk about them separately, right? I think the fears of Social Security not being there, for anybody in or near retirement, is something that they shouldn't be spending too much time worrying about. The Social Security system, with a few minor changes, can extend its life significantly. This is the issue. It's a government program, which means it's a political issue. So no one wants to touch it, and they won't until the very, the 11th hour when there's no other option, because whoever does any changes to it, president, whatever political party is in power that makes those changes, they're going to get hammered, right? No matter what. So no one wants to touch it. I get it. But there's a couple of things that could be done. The one I always reference is your retirement age, Randy, your full retirement age, my full retirement age, and my 1-month-old's full retirement age is all the same.
It's the same.
It's all 67, right? That's probably going to change. And is that a reasonable change considering life expectancy? Probably it's a reasonable change considering life expectancy. They've done it before, right? This happened, I think it was in the 80s last time it happened, because it used to be 65. And it was for, I've got the graph here somewhere, but it was something like, if you were born 1960 or later, they said, well, it's not 65 for you guys, it's 67. And then if you're in between 1955 and 1960, it's 66 and some months. And they've got various ways to calculate it. Now, is it reasonable to expect that at some point they might go and say, all right, you guys born in 2000 or 2005 or later, well, it's not 67 for y'all anymore, right? It's 69, it's 70, whatever it is. Some fairly minor changes like that make a big difference to the program.
Yeah, I think that the earliest age that you can take Social Security right now is 62. It's always been 62. I got to believe that that's going to start moving up a little bit. That's going to move from 62 to 64 or something like that.
It certainly could. Or what will happen is so what happens is you take a discount essentially, right? So the full retirement age is what everything is based off of. If you take it before that, you can, but they discount it. They reduce your benefit, right? They could move the 62, but it doesn't really matter that much because if they raise your full retirement age, they're just going to reduce that 62 amount by more. Right. So either way, I think the high level I really want people to take away is there's plenty of other things to worry about. Okay. Don't make this the thing you worry about.
Right. Yeah. If these things do happen, if they cut back on Social Security, if they cut back on Medicare, we're going to need more income. And I mean, to sit down with you and say, okay, what if? That's a little bit of what you do, isn't it? Is what if the market goes down? What if the taxes go up? What if Social Security cuts back? That's kind of what you do. Yeah.
What everyone wants to see is things like you just mentioned. Like, what if another 2008 happens? What happens in my portfolio? I was 40. I was 45 when that happened in 2008. And yeah, it wasn't nice to see, but it didn't worry me that much. I was still working. I was going to be working for a while. In fact, I kept contributing to my 401k, my employer did, and I kind of bought things on the cheap. Yeah, okay, but fast forward now, we're 15 plus years away from that. Well, now I'm retired. Now I'm not contributing to that 401k. I'm actually depleting it. What happens if we have another 2008? What happens if we have another March of 2020 COVID event? I don't think it's something to worry about, but we'll even look at, what if my Social Security gets cut in half? What happens to my plan? What happens to the retirement I want to live?
These are all the questions I think are really good to ask. And if you don't know what to ask when you sit down with Jay, start with the what if questions. Jay, what if this happens? What if that happens? Let's build a plan for the what ifs. And I think that makes people have more confidence knowing that if these things do take place, we have a strategy for it. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website. Let's sit down and build that kind of plan for you. Retire210.com is our website. Retire210.com. Down at the bottom of the page is a place for you to put a little information in there. Jay will reach out to you. We'll have a conversation about what you want to talk about, what you're concerned about, and go from there. 210-985-6200 is our number. 210-985-6200. Well, in the news, and you've heard about this over and over, and it's still going on, if you're going to plan a flight this summer, don't go through Newark. Because, I mean, it is, all the stories out of Newark Airport are not good. The delays and the cancellations and the losing contact with the planes. I mean, you're a pilot. I mean, my gosh, can you imagine you're coming in and then all of a sudden blackout? You've lost control.
Particularly, my wife went to college in New York for a while before we were married, and I go and visit her fairly frequently. And that has got to be some of the busiest airspace in the world because you've got Newark, you've got LaGuardia, and you've got JFK basically within eyesight of each other. And that would be, I've talked to some guys that fly, we've got a couple of clients who fly for United and for Delta, and they fly in and out of that space occasionally. And they're just saying that's got to be one of the scariest times of losing contact with a controller in that airspace. And, you know, I think it was for 90 seconds, and I've heard people say, oh, it says only 90 seconds. I was like, 90 seconds feels like a lifetime when you're flying and you're not talking to a controller, believe me.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about financial things on the show, and I want to take those three things there. No communication, outdated ideas or computers, and poor planning is what we see at the Newark Airport right now. And when I think about financial advisors, sometimes that is one of the complaints that people have is, I've got this person that I've set up this relationship with and they're handling my money and I can't get a hold of them. They don't call when the market goes down, or they don't call me back when I say, hey, I want to talk about this. When we talk about finding that person that you're going to walk through retirement with, that's got to be one of the big things that you've got to have, and that's good communication.
Yeah, it is. And what I'd caution people on is check that they're still in business, because we had someone come in a couple of weeks ago to move all their investments over, and they were a referral from clients of ours and stuff. And I said, well, kind of what made you make the move? And they said, I've been trying to get a hold of my advisor for a couple of months, and then I found out she's retired and went out of business, shut her business down. And I was like, oh, wow. All right.
And didn't call?
I didn't
Come
call.
on.
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it happens. And even more important than that, Randy, is having a plan for when things happen, right? Instead of being reactive. So the communication's important. When things were going wild back in April, I was having plenty of calls. And most of the people were saying, hey, look, I just kind of want to talk to you and just make me feel better about this, right? Like, talk us through our plan. That's mainly what it is, and it's important to be there for them when those things are happening. But if you haven't done the work ahead of time, if you haven't done the planning before the event happens, it might be a tough conversation.
And these are probably some of the great advantages to having set up a relationship with a financial advisor before you retire, a couple of years before you retire. So you've got some things in place, and then when things start to go a little haywire, and they will, Jay, you always say the only thing you can guarantee is it's not going to go the way you think.
That's right.
And that's the way the market is. And so we want to make sure you have that communication. You've got that person who you can bounce those ideas off, and when things go haywire, you can say, hey, am I still okay? And hopefully the answer that comes back is yes.
That's right.
Give us a call. Let's sit down and talk through your retirement. Do the math on your retirement. Here's our numbers. It's 210-985-6200. Even if you don't have a financial advisor right now and you want to start that process, and why not start right here? 210-985-6200 or retire210.com. At the bottom of the page, there's a place for you to put a little information in there, and Jay and the team will reach out to you. Thanks again for listening to Clear Skies Retirement. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you want to hear more, remember to hit the like, follow, or subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next week here on Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood.
Investment advisory services offered through investment advisory representatives at Secure Financial Management, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed are not designed nor intended to be applicable to any person's individual circumstances. It should not be considered as investment advice, nor does it constitute a recommendation that anyone engage in or refrain from a particular course of action. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Secure Financial Management is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Secure Financial Management is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Wholesalers Insurance. Jamin J. Kirkwood, Texas Insurance License number 1421850.